are live. Eric Butler, we are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I gotta vote for Trump, dude.
It's great here, a lot of fat chicks and a lot of screaming.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate.
Hello. I love you. Actually, I don't. Eric Butler. It's the Doors, if you didn't know who that is. No? No? Eric, are you alive? Eric, are you alive? Frozen in time? He's probably muted or something in his headphones. Welcome to Unauthorized Opinions. I try to sound exactly as I do on the intro, and we are live on Rumble. There goes Eric. He's having problems. We're live on Rumble, we're live on Getter, we're live on Twitter, and of course YouTube. We're going to knock on wood this time already because we're not demonetized on YouTube. I'm going to double check right now. Okay, we are demonetized on YouTube. I thought for the first time in like 8 months that we weren't automatically demonetized on YouTube. I just challenged it. So please like and subscribe because there's no way around the censorship. Every single time we go live, we get censored. We are on Getter. We are on Rumble. Rumble has been good to us as of late. So we're going to keep going here. And what better than to keep going but with Christie and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, you know, the Republican frontrunner. And Christie is, I think, polling at about 10%, Eric, in line in some polls with Ron DeSantis. And the problem with that is that DeSantis is, you know, getting a lot more media help from the right wing. But Christie made headlines, Eric, by saying that he could beat up Donald Trump. Can you hear us, Eric?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank God. So Christie is saying that he could kick Trump's ass. Before you got here, I was just saying that we weren't demonetized for a moment there on YouTube. But now we are demonetized again.
Yeah. I assume that moment it took me to leave and come back, they would figure it out.
They did. They most certainly did figure it out. I'm seeing that we're getting a little bit of pixelation on my end from the live stream, but the hopefully the video fixes itself. But everything else looks fine. I would kick his ass, Christie boasts. He would take down Trump in UFC fist fight. That kind of tells me that we're not too sure what he's saying, or we're not too sure what's going on. But Kyle Becker wrote this for Trending Politics News, which is interesting. I didn't know he wrote for them. Republican presidential candidate.
No, hang on. Trending Politics. Kyle Becker. Who do you know who else is affiliated with him?
No, I don't.
So I think I met a gentleman in D.C. a couple of years ago who I think was associated. His name is Clay. Anyways, I didn't know if you knew anybody else from, because neither here nor there. Moving on. I want to figure out exactly what this
maybe it's just a story
about.
Aggregate. Who knows?
Okay.
The former governor of New Jersey made remarks on Piers Morgan, and we'll bring that up in a second. I would kick his ass, he said. He boasts about Trump. If they ever got into a UFC fight, which of course isn't a thing, but we'll see what he has to say.
If you and Trump got in the
UFC fist fight,
he loves his UFC and stuff like that, right? If you got in the octagon, you and him, who'd win?
Come on. Guy's 78 years old. I'd kick his ass.
I mean, we know that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg apparently going to get in.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one.
Do you want to be on
Did you see that picture of Zuckerberg?
Yeah.
Looking pretty buff.
It does.
If I were Elon, I'd be a little bit worried.
I mean, would you be prepared to be on the undercard? You against Trump?
Look, I'll fight Donald Trump anywhere he wants, in any arena he wants, whether it's on a debate stage or in the octagon.
He's mocked your weight, Trump.
Yeah, look at him. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, for goodness sakes, come on. I mean, look, you know what? Here's the bottom line, Piers. For the last 30 years, I've struggled with my weight like tens of millions of Americans struggle with their weight. And there are times where I do well, and there are times when I don't do very well. And it's a struggle. And for him to be such a child, an infant, and make those kind of remarks, especially, I guess, when he's staying up in Bedminster, New Jersey, there are no mirrors where he is. Because all he needs to do is look at himself. And what he should do first, work on himself. Then when he gets himself, because he wears those ties, 8 feet
The world's
long.
longest ties, yeah.
Yeah, 8 feet long, because he told me this, because they slenderize him. Let me tell you, fail. Not work.
He's calling Trump childish, but then he said he's going to kick his ass, Eric. So color me unsympathetic to that. He also pointed out that Trump's almost 80 and Chris Christie's 60, yet he weighs probably 100 pounds more than him. In doing the thumbnail for this episode, Chris Christie's last known weight was like 344, and Trump's weight on his physical that they made him do.
344?
Yeah, let me pull it up for a second. 350, and Trump is 244. So he's 100 pounds heavier than Trump, even though he's 17 years younger than Trump. And Trump's number is up to date as of 2020. So come on, Chris Christie. Who are we kidding? Trump actually walks around. I don't know. He is old, but like, if we're actually going to analyze this like it's a fight, Chris Christie has about 15 seconds before he's too tired to do anything.
Okay. Well, I will say he is right because look, I think no matter how you slice it, I'll give him credit first because I do this guy's terrible. So I'm going to start with he's right in saying that Elon Musk should, if they're actually going to fight, if that's actually going to happen, then maybe Elon Musk should be a little bit concerned, right? Because Zuckerberg is looking in shape, right? He's a robot, whatever. He does look better than Elon Musk. Obviously, he's a little bit smaller, right? And I'm no fight. And as you well know, I don't participate in the sport at all. But that said, Elon Musk should be a little bit concerned because Zuckerberg does look like he's ready to kick the crap out of him. That said, Pierce is here again doing his ambulance chasing, latching on to the trending topic. Oh, Zuckerberg, Musk, now Trump, Christie. So Pierce is doing his thing again. And look, I don't follow him, so I don't know, like, maybe he does have good content, but it always just sort of seems to piggyback on somebody else. Like, even a guy like Tucker, who sort of sets the narrative, or even Stephen A., who sort of sets the narrative. And I guess it kind of makes us look bad because we're constantly piggybacking on the narrative. Neither here nor there. Pierce is as far as I'm concerned, the number one ambulance chasing media personality. And then Chris Christie, it's like, who is this for, bro? I mean, I'm sure he might have somebody in the country who thinks like, I like Chris Christie and he stands a chance and he's better than Trump and I like this weirdo establishment rhino personality. But who is this really for? What is your demo, bro? Honest question. I mean, we know that Trump appeals to, right? Trump appeals to a lot of people as much as the media wants to pretend that he doesn't. You can go to any hood basically in all of America, and a lot of street reporters from Sav and a handful of people have showed us that you can just go to a hood gas station or even Ami Horowitz. Everybody, like, we can sort of see the cross section of a Trump. Doesn't even have to be a Trump supporter, but somebody who might think he's funny, who might think he's entertaining. Who is Chris Christie targeting? The Homer Simpson types in New Jersey, or I mean, who is this for, bro? You're not gonna out Trump, right? You want to talk trash and you want to be a tough guy. You're playing in his sandbox, right? Which is a thing that the right wing, I hate to like fall into the paradigm discussion, but the common sense right wing typically does is they always want to say, well, we just need to get more African Americans or whatever. They try to play in somebody else, play somebody else's game. Who are you attracting with that? I mean, that's an honest question. Who's on your team? Who's guiding you in this? What did you think was going to happen? Do you think that you're really going to say, I would beat him up? Who's that appealing to?
Some bums. Yeah, I think. Is my video quality better now, by the way?
Unfortunately, it's not on my end. It looks a little grainy.
That's bullshit. Yeah, why is this so grainy? All right, we're gonna go with the screen to de-emphasize it then. But I think it's just another play for, the way to get fundraising dollars. The way we talked about Andrew Yang in the past, how he basically has no hope in winning. He's run for mayor, he's run for president. Run. I say all these things. You're going to get some people who give you money. There's people giving Mike Pence money. There's people giving Ron DeSantis money. DeSantis has never pulled over 16% in the Republican primary race. I'm sure there's tons of people giving JFK Jr. or RFK Jr.
He's super hunky.
That's true. He does take his shirt off a lot. I'm sure there's tons of people giving him money. There's a benefit to running, and then you take all this money. Was it Jill Stein from the Green Party back in the day?
Yeah,
all this money. They made $7 million for the recount that never happened. You make all this money, and sure, you can't spend it on, I can't go and buy myself a boat, but you can sure go and say, we have a business trip to go on with our campaign, or we're going to have consulting companies that my friends work for, and all this stuff. So when you get these boatloads of money coming in, it just makes it easier so that when you do other stuff, you don't have to take money out of your own pocket. You run
now. Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I think you're right. Obviously, somebody's going to give him money, but are we talking boatloads? This to me smacks of. I mean, this is almost parody, bro. This reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right? Like, I don't know if you remember when Frank says, it's always just some jerk off getting into politics for the payout. You know what I mean? It's just like, who is it? Like, yes, he's going to make money, but is it really going to be that substantial? I'm sure he's already doing quite well for himself. I'm sure he doesn't need the money, but it just feels like there's no goal, right? Like there's no, we all know he doesn't stand a chance, right? We all know that. So what is the,
wouldn't you like to raise 1.65 million for kind of nothing?
Like a scam. Just, I mean, are you familiar with the Sunny episode or no? It's
yes,
like an
of course.
early on episode. Okay. So that's what this exactly feels like. It's like just quite literally some jerk off getting into the race for the payout. That's literally what this is.
Well, let's say it cost you $300,000 or something, maybe a bit more. Even if it cost him $1 million to go around and fly privately, he's still making $650,000 for just go around and talking and doing nothing. Republican presidential candidate Christie raised $1.65 million over the first 25 days of his candidacy through June 30th, according to former New Jersey governor's latest fundraising report. Mike Pence, who raised less than 1.2 in the second quarter. Christie campaign had 1.9 available cash as of June 30th, 1.59 as of June 30th, and no debt. This support comes from 40,000 donors in all 50 states. So we're going to do some quick math here, Eric, and see what the average donation is. We've got 6 zeros divided by 40,000, $39.75 per person. So the average Chris Christie donor is giving about $40, which is really substantial. That's a lot of money. I think if you think about somebody coming to your doorstep, or you going online and you punching in $40, that's a lot of money to throw behind Chris Christie, who hasn't done anything the past 6 years. He had to resign, I believe, from the governor of New Jersey. I don't remember, or did he just lose? All I remember is the big.
I think he just lost.
The scandal where he shut down the beaches, and then all they did was just take aerial photos of him laying on the beach by himself, which is something we can find. But
I guess I'm understanding this like as we speak, right? Him saying, "Oh, I would beat him up," is literally just to get people like us talking about it, which in turn will lead to more donors. Is that what's happening?
I guess so, but if you donate to Chris Christie because he says he'll beat Trump up, then I would liken you probably to some sort of enraged leftist, because if Pete Buttigieg or somebody went around and said he was going to punch Trump, or Beto O'Rourke said he was going to ollie over Trump's corpse or something like that, you'd go, woo, my body, my choice. Here's $40. And that's right. They'd be from the South if they were voting for Beto, Robert O'Rourke. And I'd wager you're a bit of a lunatic if you want to do that. Sorry.
Have we heard much? So that's very, very Canadian of you. Have we heard much from, minor left turn here, When is the last time we heard anything out of Beto? Where's he been?
Skateboarding, maybe at the Timcast house, the skateboard park that nobody's seen. Who was it? Who was the girl that went on and said she didn't even get a tour of the skate park? One of those surf and turf ladies. I don't know. The people who support
With the leftist chick.
Yeah.
Weird leftist chick.
people who support the really weird stuff on one of those channels. We're gonna do a check on, like, my feed seems fine, but I'm gonna guess that it's still grainy.
It is a little grainy. I mean, mine looks okay. Like I look good on my end. You look a little grainy. I would say, I'm not an expert here, but it's making its way back towards clarity, so it's better than it was, but still not perfect. But from your end, does mine look okay?
All right, you ramble for 30 seconds, Eric. I'm gonna try to fix this.
Well, where am I starting? Give me something. What's the
Kamala
next topic?
Harris accidentally said she wants to reduce the population, and go.
Yes. Okay. So Kamala Harris was sort of serving up another giant bowl, a big salad, as it were, a big word salad, like she loves to do, and said that she and the establishment, the regime, or whatever you want to call it, wanted to reduce population. Now, most people are writing it off. Maybe not most people, but the establishment narrative is that, of course, that was a gaffe. We've been trained to believe that whenever somebody says something that's a little bit out of pocket, it is a gaffe. Joe Biden is obviously #1 gaffe machine of all time. And now Kamala, between cackling and word salad, says that she wants to reduce the population, and we're just supposed to take it in stride because, of course, if you notice a pattern, or if you put 2 and 2 together, or if you think that maybe there's a group of politicians, or not even politicians, but bureaucrats working against your best interests, of course, you will be deemed the conspiracy theorist. So I'm not exactly sure what Kamala meant. Nobody's exactly sure what Kamala meant. She doesn't even know what she means. She has just become a sort of colored woman, a human shield for Joe Biden. And maybe I'm digressing a little bit here, but the Biden administration has surrounded the president with 3 notable women of color, as they like to say, in order to protect him from any criticism. So we have, obviously, Jumanji Brown Jackson. We have Kamala Harris.
I came back just in time for Jumanji Brown Jackson. Is this better now?
I wish I could tell you it was, but it's not, unfortunately.
Oh my God! There was a cord that got pulled out. We put it back in. All right, go ahead, Eric.
Wait. Wow. So, Jumanji, Kamala, and who's the third one? Oh, of course, Blackity Ann, Karine Jean-Pierre. Those have become his force field, his human shields from criticism. And so, to wrap this up, the point is, I don't know what Kamala Harris meant. Perhaps it was a gaffe, because she, at her best, she is incompetent, right? At her worst, she is a completely evil political assassin. I don't know, allegedly. But I wouldn't put it past her to make a gaffe, because she's completely incompetent. She is not cut out for the job. But there's also that chance, and I lean more towards this, that they are completely evil, and she just once again is slipping and saying the quiet part out loud and telling you that she wants to reduce the population. And of course, if you notice it, if you make a reel about it, if you make content about it, if you say something about it, then you are the conspiracy theorist making a mountain out of a molehill. And now, I don't know if you have the clip. Maybe we can play it. It shouldn't be that long. Do you have it?
Yes, we do, Eric.
Absolutely. So I sound like a jackass.
Like public health. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
And they clap.
They clap sales. That's the crazy thing. See, I think it is saying the quiet part out loud, because Kamala Harris is talking about the thing they've said at the World Economic Forum. They've said this at so many different, gathering of the elitist minds. where, I mean, you want to go Georgia Guidestones, everybody, where reducing the population is obviously something that they want to do. Now, nobody's saying that they want to directly moita people, which some people will say, but they could also do things like say it's bad for the climate. You should really think about having kids in a state of the climate like this, or be afraid to have kids, whether it's because you don't want to hurt the environment, or you think the world's going to end, or there's no acceptance for transgenderism. These are reasons why people are not millennials pretty much are saying that they don't want to have kids, Eric, because they
Well,
fear what's happening in the future, which is most likely misplaced.
well, I here's the thing: is that me giving her the benefit of the doubt in this particular situation is still saying that no matter how you slice it, it's awful. Like, yeah, maybe one is a little bit worse than the other, but if it's a gaffe, then she's still just saying, I mean, it's still all completely nonsense. It's a lie, right? If she says, if she means what she says, then it's completely evil. And in that little 15-second clip, say what she meant to say, and you can play it again if you'd like, but I think maybe if I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, she means reduce emissions or something, right? Because she's talking about the climate change stuff, whatever. Like,
all right, let's hear it one more time.
Okay, let's hear it one more time.
Think about the impact on something like public health. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air.
Reduce pollution. What she's still not saying anything though. When we invest in reducing pollution, when we invest in electric vehicles, which people aren't buying, by the way, the electric vehicles are now piling up the same way the cars have piled up in racetracks across the UK and the United States. They haven't been successful in shoveling it down people's throats. And now when you compare them, you'll notice if you start watching these electric car commercials carefully, Eric, very few of them actually show the car driving. A lot of it's how it's parked and where it's charging and how you can charge it at home, or it's a CGI rendering, like pictures of the Earth from space. I got to throw that stuff in there, right?
You're looking clear though now.
Thank you.
Clear. Okay.
It's the internet's a hell of a drug. So they're failing it because they've pushed it. They didn't want to wait for, their green energy buddies to make the money naturally, because it would have happened if it was said 10 years from now, and nobody told you that you need to buy an electric car or else you're garbage. Then if it's not my only car, just like Joe Rogan in this case, where he's got 50,000 cars, if you have the money, you're probably going to buy an electric car. Why not? Like, it's cool. It goes fast really quickly. Can't drive very far, but maybe 10 years from now, it can drive a lot further when the batteries are better, and then that makes it worth buying. They said that the average car was $29,000. Well, now people who pre-ordered those F-150 Lightnings are finding that you can't really get one unless it's a $60,000 or above, after they booked them for $39,000. So they've really tried to force it here, Eric. And what they continuously do is they make these goals and they make these promises that they can never keep, and they make these claims about the environment that never come true. The glaciers and the icebergs and the penguins and the polar bears and the lions and tigers and the bears, oh my, and then none of it happens. And then you have literal stupid people like Kamala Harris come onto the stage and say, the thing about trying hard is about the trying and the hardness of the try, and stuff like that. And you don't have an Al Gore and John Kerry, who we're going to get to. You have literal brain morons, as Mr. Burns would say, trying to propagandize people to the point where it doesn't even matter. Because if they were to rely on these people, then they would be out of business. But the problem is that they have so many elites on their side that can drive this, that it doesn't matter how well it actually does. It doesn't matter how well their ideas work, as we see in cities. Shout out Danny Mullen, New York City today, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Detroit, Chicago. Shout out Leroy Press. All these places where their policies constantly fail, it doesn't matter because they cheat their way to the top.
Yeah, well, of course. And here we are again, using the assumption that they mean any of this stuff, which obviously they don't. It's all a game. Like, the joke's on us, right? That's the joke's on us. They don't mean any of this. And so yeah, the bottom line is, no matter how you slice it, it's bad. Okay, like she's She's either lying or she's evil, which has been my stance for a very long time now. And on top of that, as somebody who has recently driven clear across the country, made multiple road trips in the last 3 or 4 years since the scariest virus on the planet appeared, how does that work? I mean, not rhetorically, but like if I drive 3 or 4 hours and fill up a tank full of gas, how does that work with an electric car? We'll say Tesla because I think they probably are the biggest name in electric cars right now. But so do I stop at a charging station for an hour? Is there a line? I mean, how does this actually work? Because I know if I leave Phoenix, Arizona and drive 3 hours into the western portion of Texas, I can fill up my gas tank for whatever, $40, $60, whatever it might be. Okay. It actually, in Texas, it's the best it's been, which is probably still higher than it was in 2020. Different story. But you have that predictability. You shout out Buc-ee's. You can go to Buc-ee's. You can get the cheap gas. You can go get a pulled pork sandwich. I mean, where do you go? And I say this from genuine experiences. Most people or anybody who has followed my content knows I've moved around. I'm driving around in my little car. Does it work the same? Do I stop every 3 to 4 hours and fill up? It takes me, if I don't even go inside the gas station, it takes me 5 minutes tops to clear the windshield of bugs, fill up the tank, and get back on the road. How does that work with an electric vehicle?
Oh, you're asking a legitimate question, not a
yeah. I mean, do you stop at the same gas station and put it on a charger for 5 minutes?
No, I believe it's usually like $1 for a minute for a mile. You know what I mean? Generally speaking, 60 minutes, you're going to get a 60-minute drive. These are big batteries. But what they tried to do in Canada is they commissioned this whole let's build out the electrical charging grid, which of course we can throw to the famous clip where the guy admits, or the lady admits that the building, no, it was a guy. They asked
there was one with a lady though. There was one with a woman.
They asked a female politician how it's powered. She says the power comes from the building for the electric chargers. Then they ask a guy who works in the building. He says that coal plant down the street there is what powers the building. So what they did in Canada is they tried to build out this gigantic network of electric car charging facilities, charge stations, I guess you could call them. And they forgot where they put them. They didn't know where they put them. They wanted to make a map of where they all were, and they're just like, we don't know where we actually built them all. So they hired a third party who has an app. You know, there's apps out there that exist for where to charge your electric car. So they had to pay a couple $100,000 to get a third party to find all their charging stations so that the government could properly list them. I'll look that up in a second. So what Biden wants to do now is he wants to use Elon Musk and his supercharging stations because they do have the fastest charger. That's true, but we covered this a couple months ago where he wants to use Elon's method to not only reach the number of cars that they produce per year, the electrical cars, but to also reach the amount of car charging stations that they're hoping to get to, which they still will not reach. So take that as you will.
California already has a problem with the electrical grid, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay. All right. So yeah, it's all fake. It's all completely malicious, and they would love nothing more than to control your every waking moment. Neither here nor there. I mean, I'm sure if you were last thing as per my signature, I'm sure you would get the entire presentation on how this works when you go in there to buy an electric car. But I haven't looked into it, so I'm just genuinely curious: how many miles, how many minutes, how many hours are you getting before you have to recharge again if you wanted to make a cross-country drive? Because I'll let you know, on my trip, I didn't see any electric cars anywhere between Phoenix and Florida, right? So how many miles do you get? And when you are out, how long does it take for you to recharge? And I guess they would tell you that, or maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe the Tesla salesman won't tell you that. I truly don't know. But neither here nor there, I guess.
So they say that they want to build. They're building 65,000 new stations, but an industry group says you need to be building millions of stations. So now, Eric, we got to look up how many gas stations are there in Canada.
But
I'm
not
guessing
in.
there isn't millions.
But you can't do that in California because they're telling you you have to buy an electric car, or there's not going to be any more new gas powered vehicles sold after 2030 or whatever it is. And then inside a week, they're telling you actually our grid is under stress and maybe don't charge it. We're going to go ahead and ask you not to run your dishwasher, not to run your washing machine.
Yeah.
Or your, I mean, it's absolutely through the roof. And of course, as we know, if you are to notice any of it, then you're the bad person. So asking the questions is completely out of the realm of polite society.
So there are 11,893 retail gas stations in Canada. And I just went ahead and was generous and so there's 12 pumps at each station. That's 144,000 pumps because I don't know if they by 65,000 new charging stations they mean like a gas station sort of thing, you would think so, or if they mean by charging station an individual thing that you can charge with. So I was generous and said that there's 12 pumps at every Canadian gas station, which would equal 144,000 pumps across the country. But they want to build millions of gas stations in Canada, or charging stations in Canada. This makes absolutely no sense. It just goes to show you, once again, like find me an example where we're talking about electric vehicles where it's not either completely unattainable in terms of their goals for everything, or it's completely fabricated to the point where it doesn't make any sense and it's just a virtue signal. I would like to know like any point. Like Elon Musk, I don't think he's an evil guy, but I think that he is just out to make money and he's going to say his stuff is the best. And Tesla's probably going to be the best electric car. The expensive ones go insanely fast. You got the Cybertruck coming out, which is obviously, you know, they have these sci-fi-esque portions to these cars that they do because he likes it. But none of this stuff is actually happening, and they have all these goals across the world, like 2050 in the European Union to get to zero emissions, and then in Canada they want to do like 2030, and then the US
zero emissions is completely fake, though, right? Zero emissions
again,
is completely fake.
It's they're offsetting it. They're saying if we take away the emissions from gas powered cars, that means that we can, you know, it's carbon neutral or carbon zero sort of thing. That means we can offset basically the other things. Even though Canada has a deficit in terms of carbon emissions. Sorry to tell everybody we have a lot of trees. But
it's fake, right? Because
that's what I'm saying is that even their stated goals, which are supposed to be amazing, let's cut these emissions, let's go net zero by 2050. It's just so they're still going to be doing the stuff that they do, but they're going to say, look how much we decreased our net emissions. Therefore, it cancels out everything we do. If we can get regular people to stop eating beef, stop having children, and you know, stop driving cars.
Well, you guys
can
are doing
everything
the
we
assisted
want.
suicide, right? Like you guys are just going to the point where, like,
you
guys are just. So you guys have taken it all the way, but even outside of that,
you're never going to stop me from killing myself.
But even outside of the basically, you know what, you are the footprint that we want to reduce. Outside of that, are they just completely ignoring what it takes to build these batteries, right? So you can say zero emissions, fine, but that means that you are taking out that essential step in creating these batteries and these electric vehicles. You're just eliminating that and pretending that it doesn't exist, because I assume there's some emissions in that process. I'm no engineer, I'm no expert, but
those are in places where, you know, nobody cares about emissions, Africa. And then if you do try to talk about it, then they will go full in the other direction and say it's actually racist, these things, because, you know, they're in Africa and they're near whatever they said in that Australia article we talked about one time, where they said it was, you know, a colonizer's thing to have the lithium mines, even though it is a Chinese colonizer's thing. But nobody says anything about that. Nobody says how Elon Musk gets his batteries from China. I guess it'd be hypocritical of some people because of how many things come from China. But that's why I imagine they're building that electric car battery plant in Pennsylvania so that they can have their own batteries for all the F-150s. But this is going to fail. I promise you it's going to fail. At the very least, in the best case scenario, it loses money for a decade. And then eventually people start saying, well, Electric cars are good enough now. We're going to buy them. Otherwise, Eric, they're just going to have to force it, which is what they're trying to do. And the EU is so pussified that they just go along with everything. Oh, BMW, Mercedes, or not Mercedes. Yeah, Mercedes. BMW, Mercedes, Lamborghini, all these companies in Europe, all the best cars probably in the world. German autos and English autos are really cool too. They just all go along with it, even if it destroys themselves. That's how they do this stuff. Because what do? They get in bed with the top companies like BlackRock, who is involved with Raytheon, of course. We can get into the whole Ukraine situation with that. But they involve
Shout out
themselves with
Solyndra. Do you remember Solyndra? Shout out to them.
No. But
Look into that.
They get in bed with all these giant companies who just force it from the top down. Oh, you want insurance? ESG score. Oh, you want a loan? ESG score. You want a car? ESG score plus climate emissions, everything else. You got to agree with everything. Even if it doesn't work, Eric, they're going to take all the people from the top, they're going to shove it down your throat, and you're going to have like a Dubai situation on your hands. I was talking about this with my friends earlier, where you have no middle class, you have even no lower class. You have a slave class, you have the elite class. You have the slave class working to the point where they can't pay anything and they can't leave, and then you have the people benefiting off of it, and you have a higher class of people from a different country until that runs out, fueling your economy with tourism and everything like that. And then when that runs out, you basically just have slaves and rich people, and there won't need to be any tourism because you're just in slavery. That's the inevitable, Roman-esque, Chinese-esque, Venezuela-esque, African warlord-esque inevitability, communist Russia-esque end game where it all goes to. And I thank Justin Trudeau for this. I thank him for cutting climate emissions. And it doesn't matter what anybody says. They say the carbon tax saves you money. They actually tell you that taxing you saves you money, because the part that they don't tell you, they just expect you to drive
stupid.
less.
They think you're stupid. That's the bottom line. They think you're stupid. It's all completely fake. It will. I do believe it will fail in the long run, but you kind of have to give him credit for really trying so hard. If there was a common sense faction, if the common sense conservative or the right wing or whatever you want to call it tried half as hard as the ruling establishment tried, then this world will be a different place, right? Because and we see it on the very surface level. We see this when regular people start to apologize for using the wrong pronoun or whatever. That's the most basic surface level, right? So where they're apologizing because they're going to get called an ist or an ism or whatever, it's capitulation because they're spineless little cowardly weasels. So if they would stand up and say no, quite simply, then it wouldn't be that bad, right? So I use the example, I've used it several times before, but I learned in one of my past jobs that George Soros and the Open Society Foundation had a huge part in starting the legalization of medical cannabis in California in the 80s. And now fast forward to 2021 or whatever it was when it goes fully recreational and there's billboards for weed all over the place to make people docile. Different story. They don't give up. So where a conservative, so to speak, would just give up and say, I'm sorry. And we're getting away from that now, right? Because it's finally maybe starting to bounce back. But they don't say sorry, right? They don't talk like you're never going to convince one of these weirdo delusional leftists with your logic because they don't care about the logic. They only care about their agenda, right? So that's why they can call Larry Elder a white supremacist. That's why they can call Vivek Ramaswamy a white supremacist, is because they throw all logic out the window and they have the laser focus on their agenda, which the other faction perhaps needs to get eventually. And this boils down to all their things, whether it's Rona, whether it's forcing you to wear a mask, whether it's forcing you to get a shot, whether it's forcing you to drive an electric car, whether it's forcing you to cut the junk off your little boy. It works for all the same things. They don't care. They have their eyes on the prize. It's gotten them this far, and it's finally, I hope, starting to bounce back.
Well, let's move on to John Kerry now and the climate agenda of things. Massachusetts representative. I forget
Can
his
I just
first
say
name.
I'm sorry, John Kerry?
What?
He looks like a cartoon of himself. Like
He looks like the
a caricature.
saggy-cheeked dog.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, talks like this.
Yeah.
So basically, this representative is asking John Kerry if he ever had a private jet. He's like, no, I don't personally own a private jet. And they're just like, but these documents say that your wife has a private jet. He's like, well, yes, my wife has had a private jet, and I've flown on it sometimes. Oh, that's a completely different story. My friend said that's like me saying I don't have a house. My wife just owns the house. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so insane. And the crazy thing about this is if you look into John Kerry's family, you know, his wife is Teresa Heinz, heir to the Heinz ketchup throne, by the way. And before, she was married to a different congressman or a different senator, excuse me. And then he died, and then she just jumped ship to another politician. She's really marrying for love.
Sounds like Kimberly Guilfoyle. No shade.
Ooh, shots fired.
Mr. Secretary, in exchange with Mr. Mills, you just testified under oath that you never owned a private jet. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the record article here from February 15th of 2023. The John Kerry family private jet was sold shortly after accusations of climate hypocrisy. Mr. Secretary, do you stand by that testimony that you've never owned or
I personally,
your family?
I
Your family.
personally, yes, my wife owned a plane, and so
You flew on that plane.
Not in a number of years, but I have flown on it.
And
Sure.
this article is not then inaccurate that your family owned a plane, you flew on a plane.
My wife
Secretary, Mr.
owned.
Secretary,
My wife owned
here's
a plane.
here's the issue.
Yeah.
This isn't some kind of partisan gotcha. When we are asking Americans to make serious sacrifices as we transition for the common good, and
No
your
pun intended.
family and
Lie.
or yourself are flying around on private jets, that smacks of hypocrisy. It actually hurts your cause, Mr. Secretary. But I'll move on. I just want to know from a record standpoint.
Afford me the right, at least, to set the record straight here. I do not fly on a private jet. I do
On
not
Wednesdays.
Fly. I fly commercially.
Have you
on
flown
all
on a
of my
private jet since you've
responsibilities-
taken this position?
Just let me just finish. I have flown 5 times in the last 2.5 years on Mill-Air, which you also fly on,
Sure.
and or some of you who travel fly on 5 times. Otherwise, all of my trips are commercial
Have you
airlines.
flown on a private jet in a personal or official capacity since you've taken this position?
Possibly once.
No, man.
I don't. I think. I just don't. I'm trying to think. Of
I
the date.
think you need to take the broader point of how this appears to the American people
But no,
as
it
we're asking them
doesn't
to
appear
take
that. Let
that.
me tell you why.
You
We're
know-
not
you know
asking
these
Americans.
testimonies?
We're not asking Americans not to fly.
Yes, you
know,
are,
you're
dude.
trying to create.
They've already done this thing in Europe where they've eliminated a whole bunch of the short flights. They've eliminated tons of flights that, you know, people would just use to travel around within Europe that are very cheap because they don't want you to fly. We're not asking Americans not to fly. Is that why we've like the price of jet fuel is way up? Is that why the price of gas is up? Is that why, you know, we're telling you that you have to sell electric cars and eliminate gas cars? And he's just a bad liar, Eric. His face is a catcher's mitt. And he comes up here and he's like, well, what do you mean? It's actually my wife's jet. I don't actually fly. I've only flown 5 times since I've been in power. I can't remember. I fly to the climate protests in Europe, the and the World Economic Forum, of course, he flies to.
Well,
It's just utter nonsense.
Just think about how condescending you have to be and how much of a jerk you have to be to say, well, I think I flew private, maybe once. I'm not sure, bro. Come on, give us a break. You're trying to be humble about like your private flights. I think possibly once since I've taken. All right, let's back up. We're all not that stupid. I like to think that even the spineless little Republican weasels who are sitting up there behind their desk, if me and you, 2 jackass podcast hosts, are we smarter than the Republicans? Are we more aware of what's happening than the Republicans on that stand? you can't talk to these people as though they're absolutely morons. Like, well, maybe, and technically my wife. Like, give us a break, bro. We're not that stupid.
I was just going to say, he's got to get through the time. He knows the person asking him a question has a limited amount of time. So that's basically what it's about, getting through that time so he can obfuscate until then. What I have also a problem with the representative there, Waltz was his name, is that I disagree with his premise where we're all doing something for the greater good. And that goes to what you were talking about earlier, is how the Republicans and a lot of right-wing people, they want so badly to be liked by left-wing people and pretend as if they're doing it in good faith. You know, Ben Shapiro's always said, it's wrong to assume that the person you're arguing with is doing so in bad faith. And that can be true if you're in some sort of straightforward debate. But this
Tim
isn't a
Pool
debate.
says that too. Tim Pool says something.
But when you're in Congress and in a hearing and the goal is, you know, we're all doing gotchas, it's never in good faith, which is why podcasts exist, which is why Rogan's popular, which is why to a degree Bill Maher is popular, all this stuff, Tim Pool, because you can actually get answers out of somebody. And when he just says, when he goes up there and says, well, we're all doing it for the greater good. No, we're not doing it for the greater good. They're doing it so their preferred billionaires can make money, as opposed to oil billionaires who tend to be right-wing or Saudis. They prefer their left-wing billionaires who are communists or left-wingers or Eastern Ukrainian oligarchs and such.
It's like thunder. There's like
I can't hear.
There's thunder, but it's not raining yet, but it's going to start raining. And it like flickers the lights. It's crazy here.
Well, what happened when we saw Tucker Carlson on Friday questioning Republicans who couldn't run away? We saw him completely destroy Mike Pence on Europe. We saw him destroy Tim Scott on the border and illegal immigrants. Ron DeSantis just avoided the question, and like that's what they try to do. They avoid the question. They try to drum up support from the crowd. Asa Hutchinson got destroyed. This is what happens when they actually have to sit there and answer questions, which is why they never do. Trump's the only one who does that. He didn't go to this thing.
And that's why people like him.
He probably thinks that it can't help him to go to that.
First of all,
go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, Asa, that's a girl's name. Am I tripping? Like Asa, like bro, I
think it's a 1920s name.
Okay. Secondly, what John Kerry here is saying, without the sugarcoating, is quite simply rules are for poor people, right? That's what he's saying. That's the Hillary Clinton school of, it's the Gavin Newsom, the Nancy Pelosi, rules are for poor people, very simply. And I get closer, the more we sort of we work our way through this cultural war, the more I think that the climate agenda, the climate crisis, the climate hysteria becomes almost as bad as the transformer agenda, okay? Because the transformer agenda has been boiled down to just shouting over people and you can't, just no questions, nothing, just obey. And then as soon as, a guy like, and I think this has happened a couple times over now, but a guy like Zuby will identify as a woman and then destroy women just to prove the point. And you start to see these surveys, even by Newsweek or USA Today, or these mainstream articles or these mainstream outlets that say most Americans don't agree with this. I think you even wrote an article a handful of months ago about, I think it was about African Americans specifically, and I shouldn't have even said that because I think we don't say African Canadian, we don't say African British, neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make is, I think this climate change thing has become, it will eventually bypass the transformer agenda as being the most destructive, quite simply because reality will undoubtedly come for the transformer agenda. They cannot outrun the truth, but the climate change agenda is not. There's no baseline for it, right? They can always just move the goalpost. The transformers can't move the goalpost anymore, right? Like they're gonna get backed into a corner. They painted themselves into the corner. The climate change people can just change the science, or they can say, oh well, the world was gonna end in 2021 or 2020 or whatever it was. but now it's changed a little bit. So they can always move the goalpost because it's not based in any reality, right? So the makeup of a human being has a concrete truth, and they want to shut you down from spreading that very simple truth that really shouldn't have to be explained to anybody, but you can't say that. Whereas the climate change stuff can always change, and you're not a scientist, so you can never know about it. Like they're going to talk to you about emission footprint and greenhouse and all this stuff. None of it makes any sense, but they can move that much easier than backing someone into a corner who's saying, I'm going to get a uterine transplant. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It's one of those things they can always move the goalpost on.
Yeah.
And whatever they can move the goalpost on, they will use to make you out to be a bad person if you don't go along with the things that make the money. Oh, Ukraine, you don't support it, you're a bad person. Let us both make money off destroying it and rebuilding it and funneling money in and out of it. Oh, vaccine. If you don't get it, you hate your relatives and you hate grand people, even though
it's about respect.
Yeah, my mask protects you, so you got to do it. All this stuff. It's about, racism. I can go off and on. Our last topic's going to be about how millennials think misgendering should be a crime, but please consider our Patreon at patreon.com/UOPod. It is there where you will see our 3 tiers, which you can contribute to get what, Eric? To get our free bonus podcast each week, which is uncensored and uncut and generally, unauthorized, you might say. But patreon.com/UOPod is where you want to go. And look, these are Canadian prices. So if you're an American, then you can, get it for like what, $6 or $7, whatever the sweet exchange rate is for you. Eric came here a few months ago, and I told me he had a 30% discount on everything. So
you should do the inverse very soon.
Exactly. And if you want to help us become Joe Rogan, or if you want us to be the Raptors super fan, who's a very rich guy who goes to every Raptors basketball game courtside, or even you really, really love us because we're both attractive young men, then you should pay, and you will get the bonus podcast every single week. And I'm about to post a exclusive clip before it comes out from my video of talking to people in Toronto, where I confronted a climate protester, and he basically knew nothing about anything, and he left because I asked him why he doesn't know, he doesn't know any of the information surrounding him standing out there holding a sign. He was like, he was holding a sign about the wildfires and saying that one of the banking companies has been contributing to the most new oil projects in the country out of anyone. And I said, well, name one of the projects that you're against that they're supporting. He's like, oh, I don't know. I haven't looked into any of that. And I was like, you haven't looked into any of this?
Oh, somebody's calling my name. He's just a friend.
He ran away after I started talking to a second couple, so he didn't know anything that he was talking about. He just went out there with a sign, and I guess he was doing his part. I don't know. So millennials, of course, who are offended by everything, and they started this whole "everybody's a winner" campain,
which I was never part of. As a millennial, I never participated. Just want to throw that out there.
You are what we tell you to be, Eric. More millennials think this from Newsweek. Think referring to a transgender person by the wrong pronoun should be a criminal offense, then think it should be illegal, according to a new poll conducted exclusively for Newsweek. Now, of course, it's going to be a poll, depends on who they asked and where. But this generation of millennials, I mean, unless we start coming out with mass amounts of data, I don't know how much we can believe this. These are probably people who haven't thought about this at all, and they obviously think hate speech is something. 44% of those aged 25 to 34 think, quote, referring to someone by the wrong gender pronoun, he, him, she, her, should be a criminal offense, end quote, versus just 31% who disagree. The remainder neither agree or disagree or don't know. I would like to ask these people why, because what we've realized, Eric, that a lot of the things we've run into in this world today are based on hurting somebody, being mean. Get kicked off of Twitter for being mean. You got demonetized on YouTube for being mean. Everything boils down to being mean, and this is the entire paradigm of whether or not somebody's sincere in their beliefs. Because they're not, the excuse is you're being mean. What it really is we don't want you to express these opinions because it's bad for us politically, and that stops us from making money. True or false?
Yeah, well, yes, it's true, and they know, as much as the media likes to pretend that regular people like you and I are absolutely insane, I promise you. And look, I'm not going to sit here. I can't say definitively, quite obviously. But I think if you go even into the dungeon, into the belly of the most extreme cities like San Francisco or Manhattan, the media is telling you that you're an outlier and you're the mean one and you're wrong. But if you actually go there and talk to people, if you spent a couple hours in Manhattan or even more notably Oakland, I shouldn't say nobody. That's wrong. Very few people are actually going to be on board with this. And I would venture to say that the people who are on board with this they don't actually believe it. They are just scared. Like we remember the girls from the whatever podcast went viral a handful of months ago, saying that they know what a woman is, but they're too scared to say it. And I haven't read this article. We'll get through it a little bit more, but very simply, I think it's fake. I think it's this is just them. This is just them on the next level of pretending that normal people are completely inappropriate, but it's just not the case. And if it were the case, what's the meme? There's a meme that floats around. It goes maybe not viral, but it shows up every couple of months where if we were wrong, then their propaganda wouldn't be necessary, right? So they're doing this because they know that they're on the outs. And this is why I get really scared. Scared is not the word. Concerned, okay? That nothing's going to be on the level because now the rain is here. Because if everything were on the level, it wouldn't have, normal people still exist. There are regular kids playing baseball and soccer and basketball and parents and families and mailmen. Most of this stuff is absolutely normal. Me and you are eyeball deep in political culture war and stuff. So it seems like there's far more people actually doing this. But I think when you boil it down, there's a handful of people on Twitter who are trying to terrorize the rest of the world. That's all it is. And we are at this particular point in time continuing a battle against a tiny minority of crazy people who are trying to wield power. So there's a book that I'm reading. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but there's a book that I've been
the Bible.
There's a book that I've been tasked with reading, and it basically says, amongst other things, that oftentimes the minority will lead the charge, right? Because it's very easy, and actually, damn it, shout out to Tim Pool, and I'm just citing him, I think, at least for the second time today, is that it's easier to change the rules so that the tiny minority will be okay with it, right? So say for it's easier to make a kosher dinner if you have one kosher guest, because the non-kosher people will eat kosher food, but the kosher person won't eat non-kosher food. And no shade, I don't want to get canceled for it. I should have given an example because I know there's a certain group you can't. The point I'm trying to make is halal, right? There's a handful of other examples that I'm blanking on right now, but basically you capitulate to the minority because the regular people will just go along with it and they'll say, I don't care. Whereas the tiny minority will say, I'm not doing that, because they are a little bit more, for whatever reason, steadfast in their beliefs, and for better or for worse. But you see what I'm saying? It's like the minority can steer the ship, which is what we're seeing. Shout out to Dave Chappelle for the LGBT car analogy. They're steering the ship because everybody else will get on board because they don't really care that much. It's just that handful of people that care that they won't go the other way. If that makes sense.
So the poll was of 1,500 people, And the millennial figure contracts starkly with that for Americans as a whole, which is only 19% want misgendering to be a criminal offense. Still too high, of course. 65% disagree, 12% neither agree nor disagree, and 4% answered that they don't know. Notably, Gen Zs 18 to 24 who can vote are notably less keen on making misgendering a crime than older millennials. 33% think that it should be a criminal offense, while 48% disagree. So, what was the original number here again?
I'm not sure.
The original number was. As we
That's
scroll
too far.
all the way up. Yeah, I guess so, eh? Oh, yeah, eh? 44%. So even almost 20% more millennials than Gen Zs, or 11%. Still, they want it to be illegal compared to the even younger people who, by and large, are much more likely to have gender pronouns that are differing from the rest of the population because they are more immune to the propaganda, I would have to say, being inundated with it on a daily basis. Whereas the the millennials, I would wager people who are a bit older than us, my brother and my sister's age, won't tell you how old they are. They, again, they just don't want to be mean. And you see this, the Starbucks people, the people who work for Bud Light, anything that is mean or uncomfortable has to be completely avoided at all costs because that's how they were going to get popular. That's how they think they're going to get popular on social media. And that's what gets rewarded a lot of the time. But that's what it all comes down to, and it's sickening, Eric. Final thoughts?
Well, I think basically what you're kind of saying is that the millennials, a little bit older people, are, for whatever reason, are more scared of the algorithm and more scared of the mob. Whereas maybe the Gen Z people who they don't even understand, they never lived without the internet. They don't, it's not as scary to them. I don't know. Like, for some reason, they're like, I was born with an iPad in my hand and I'm not really worried about it. Versus the millennials who are a little bit older who still think that Twitter's real for some reason. Like, they haven't fully got a grasp on it. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if you can hear it's legitimately storming outside. I don't know if you can hear it now, but
no, I can't hear it. Okay. What I want to know is, I can hear it a bit now. It's fine. It's good ambience. This I think it's C-19 bill that has taken a hold in Canada now, where Facebook, Meta.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get to this.
Will not. It's silly, anyways. I think. They did this in Australia where they want Facebook to pay the news companies for appearing on their platform. The logic is they drive so many people to go to their platform for news, they should pay them for it. Doesn't make sense. They don't have Facebook, did a good job in building a platform that people would want to go to. I get the angle, but they're not obligated to pay you just for using their website. That doesn't make any sense. And of course, I don't think it should be a thing. I don't think they should be forced. I don't think they should pay them. But on the other hand, Eric, just go to the news website. If you're going to Facebook for your news anyways, I get it. It's easier to find all these things in one place. That's why I use Twitter. But I don't go to Twitter to look for all of the headlines. You just can't. It's good to get breaking stuff, but if you just want to sit and read the news, which I know that, the grandmas and the casual news readers on Facebook, they're not going for, what's happening just this instance. You can just go to a website. You can just go to CNN if you want. You can just go to Fox. You can go to Daily Mail. You can go to Timcast. You can go to Blaze, theblaze.com.
Go to Valuetainment.
Huh. Interesting plug, Eric. You can read me on the Blaze every single day. We just had an amazing segment with Tucker Carlson, an amazing sit down. But what I'm saying is, just go to the websites. Either go and protest the thing, make some multimedia, make some videos about it, make posts about it. That's great. They probably won't be seen in Canada, but either do something about it or just change. It's not that big of a deal. I don't support it, but to tell me that your life is ruined and changed because you can't get on Facebook to read the news is a lie. And what it is companies want you to watch their stuff on Facebook and on Instagram, and therefore they are upset about it, so they're going to tell you that it's the biggest problem in the world, when really it'd be more beneficial if people just went to your website. The click-through rates on Facebook, on Instagram, don't know if you guys have noticed by the amount of times that you yourself have clicked on stuff and been like, oh, I better go click on this stuff from this Instagram story. It's not very high. Facebook gets way more than Instagram, yes, but if you just went to everybody's website, like the year was 2004, and you just got on your computer and you went to Infowars.com and you went to eBombs World and you went to GeoCities.Eric's webpage with his favorite Linkin Park song on the front, then everybody would make more money. I'm just saying, they're pushing people towards your favorite creators, your favorite Crowders, your favorite Pools, your favorite Joneses, your favorite Butlers and Chapadoses. They're pushing you towards it incidentally, and you're saying, no, I want to stay on the Zuckerberg Lizard cast, and I want to watch him shirtless do MMA, and I would prefer that, even though it's the same thing with the RFK Jr. people, Eric. I think everything's stupid, but I'm going to post this old man, and it's not gay, and he says one thing that I like, and he's amazing, but I'm still going to, he still wants to, take away your guns, but he's still amazing. It's the same thing. I hate Zuckerberg. He's a lizard. He's a robot. He's from outer space. He may or may not be Jen Psaki at the same time, but I would prefer to use his platform to read my news.
We saw something similar with Tulsi Gabbard, just because she looked hot on a surfboard, but her policies are still completely crazy. I'm just comparing that to the RFK thing. But.
Shout out Not Intimidated in the chat, who says, will for sure Governor Krispy Kreme could sit on Trump. Shout out New York for when they offered the Krispy Kremes for the vaccine. Shout out Dano76 says how we talked about Biden activating our military reserves. You're going to have to re-listen and find out, or just sign up for patreon.com/UOPod. We are out of time today. Bonus podcast later this week. Eric's not quite ready to announce his announcement yet. He's announced a preview to an announcement of an announcement, I think. And I will have a video tomorrow night from the streets of Toronto, a new vlog/streeter video. We've got K-pop. We've got climate protesters running away. We've got me telling people not to commit suicide at the mall. We've got it all. Anything else, Eric?
Buy my book, New York City 2020. As you know, it only gets better with age.
Just like a fine cheddar cheese. Old/fort.
Turn it up, Jordan.